Hello everyone, this is Dan Saavedra from MergeYourData, and we are on day 19 of the 90-day YouTube sprint all about signal analytics. And today we are focusing on how to handle unattributed conversions. This is a big topic that's been popping up over the past few years because Google, Facebook, Apple, everyone has been dealing with various changes from all the platforms, trying to deprecate cookies, tracking, everything else from the tech side of things so that people don't have the data or can't collect the data of what everyone's doing on the internet. And so obviously if you're in the EU, then you've been dealing with privacy laws that have been impacting what type of data you can collect for a while now. If you were in the US, it's more of technological changes that the companies are implementing in response to policy in the US, but also in anticipation of changes in policy as well, and other things too, from a business strategic perspective. But I digress. Unattributed data points are causing havoc in a lot of organizations because things are showing up as either direct in terms of the channel that they're coming from or unattributed entirely. And so you can't see where people are coming from and you don't know what is and isn't working. And so a lot of organizations face this challenge. There's a lot of ways that you can handle it. And so we're going to be going over that in this presentation. Before we get started, I am Dan Saavedra, the founder of MergeYourData, like I said, the signal analytics firm where we find data points that indicate whether or not prospects are likely to buy. And then we feed that directly into your CRM so that your sales team can reach out with the right messaging at the right time and convert more people into customers. I've been working for 12 years in data, started as a data analyst, worked up to a data architect, did consulting with 60 plus clients over several years, and now I'm running MergeYourData. So who's this relevant for? The revenue leadership team, revenue leadership plus their team. And so I've been saying this in a lot of these videos, and so now I'm just going to call this the trio. This is RevOps, marketing, and sales. You may or may not have all three of those organizations. They may be under one roof. You might only have marketing and sales. Just depends on your own company structure, but it's relevant for people who are focused on revenue generation. So that would be anyone who's trying to get people in the door and converting. And so pick which office character you are in this video. Why you'd care. And so there's three main reasons why you would care about this video. One, attribution is a part of signals. So if you've been watching this video or these videos from this 90-day YouTube sprint, which is the experiment we're doing because we saw some indications that organic YouTube was a good channel for us to explore. So anyways, attribution is a part of signals. So signal analytics is what you care about because you've been watching this series. It leads to lifted revenue. Signals lift revenue. So if you care about using signals to earn more money, then this would be relevant because attribution is a part of it. Two, attribution has flaws but will not stop being relevant. Maybe you've already had the discussion of why you shouldn't care about attribution, but I seriously doubt that you've convinced the entire organization that attribution shouldn't be used, shouldn't be cared about, and should be the focus. A lot of people say that it's inaccurate, which is somewhat true. A lot of people say that the majority of the data will be unattributed or direct, which can be true. But people are not going to stop talking about it because they still want to be able to walk back how they're making money, where their investments are going, what it's leading to. So you're going to keep having this conversation. Three, you spend big money to earn big money. What is working? So relevant to or related to number two, if you're spending millions of dollars on advertising, on whatever headcount for whichever organization associated with earning more revenue, marketing, sales, and RevOps, you want to know what is your return. Otherwise, you might not have a viable business and you might all not have jobs soon. So you want to know what's working so that you can replicate that and grow the stuff that is working and then shut down the things that aren't working at the time or re-strategize around it. So that's why you would care. And so if we are going to handle unattributed conversions before we even get into the data and start doing different things, we need to make sure that we are set up correctly and are fundamentally sound. And the fundamentals for everything are always what you need to go back to if you're experiencing issues. They're fundamental for a reason. And so, number one, we're going to be checking whether or not our integrations are set up correctly. Do we have Google Analytics or whatever tracking tool we're using integrated correctly into our website? Do we have that feeding back to our CRM correctly, or to a BI dashboard, or whatever you use to analyze your actual analytics? Is it right? Did you have your pixels installed correctly from all your ad platforms? Are you using some third-party tool? Are those scripts installed on the website for every single page? Do you have them configured correctly for specific events? We need to go back to these integrations and make sure that they are working correctly. So it's mostly integrations between your CRM and then anything that a customer would be touching. That's what we're talking about here. We're not talking about other integrations. This is primarily for, this is for marketing and sales related data points. If the only exception for this is if you are doing the full customer lifecycle, which you should be, and you have something to track on the customer success side, let's say you are a SaaS product, then your integrations with your own product back to your CRM is also critical. Once all these are set up, you can build so many things off of it. You can build contextual messages on your website, stuff we haven't talked about yet. But that's number one. Number two, you need to check your UTMs, funnels, and forms and that they are set up correctly. Are you using UTMs? Are they placed on links that you share out to various places? Yes, there are limitations to UTMs. Certain browsers are stripping UTMs when you click on them, so you can't even get that data. But they are still useful, and it's still fundamental to include those whenever you're sharing links. Funnels and forms, are they set up correctly? Do you have data captured correctly step by step in the funnel? Or is it too broad where these funnels are just leading to general pages and so you can't really tell the customer journey? And then with forms, are you, if you're using HubSpot, are you embedding hidden UTM parameters in your forms? Are you collecting the right information to qualify people and to understand where they're coming from? And then three, your expectations. We have to check our expectations. It's not 2001 anymore, 2002, 2003, where you can track everything someone is doing because it's the Wild West. Like, it was the Wild West back then. Even with like Facebook ads targeting, you could be hyper specific in who you were targeting, when you were targeting them, and a lot of really creepy things about people. Now it's a little more difficult. You can't really see that. And so we have to expect that we're not going to be able to have accurate attribution for a lot of the people interacting with our company. And that's okay. There's all the topics that people talk about within demand generation, including stuff like the dark funnel. I don't know who coined that term, but I hear it all the time. And so these are just things that you can't see or track in any way. Say it's people having conversations at a networking event. It's someone who is walking by one of your advertisements that are print somewhere. Obviously, there are some technologies where you can like track whether or not someone has passed by a billboard that you're renting out or something like that, but we're not talking about that. But there's just tons of things that you can't track, and that's okay. Because with signals, we're not just relying on attribution. Attribution is just a part of the game. So demand gen versus demand capture. This is a big topic when we're thinking about unattributed conversions and how to handle them. Demand capture can be much easier to attribute because people are typically going through specific channels to get services or products that solve a very defined problem. So it's existing market, they're ready to buy. Know the channels, you pay for ads on Google search, those specific places that people go to buy specific types of products. And so you get your product there, or you get your salespeople there. And so it's much easier to push them down a specific path, know where they originally came from, and measure all that. But demand gen, especially for B2B companies, which is what we've been talking about through this entire video series, it's who we work with. Demand gen is a critical part of many B2B businesses, and it's harder to attribute. A lot more things going on where people aren't interacting with your business in any measurable way. And so it makes it very difficult to attribute where they've come from, where each action is coming from. And that's okay. But That's also why we want to get people to opt into our CRM as soon as possible. Gated, non-gated, giant war going on right now. I say we always get people to opt in as soon as possible so that we can track them with our own solutions as they move throughout the web as much as legally possible and ethically possible. And so you want them to submit that email and say, I'm signing up. And then you can enrich that data with tons of tools. You can hopefully use, well, depending on how long cookies are around, put the first party cookie on there, use other types of fingerprinting methods from other third-party tools to identify people and see where they're going. And then you can build this entire profile. Won't get into the politics of that. That's the nature of the world we live in. You can track that stuff. And so when we want to get people to opt into our CRM as soon as possible, that means we need to provide a small reason that they would want to opt in for. Pretty straightforward. Give them something in exchange for their information and consent. It's not too difficult. This is a very fundamental part of marketing. Either a great free offer or partially gated content at cliffhangers in specific pieces of content. So if you're producing really good blog posts, if you're producing really good LinkedIn posts, if you're producing really good videos, and where the meat is in that entire content or in that content, then you can gate it at a specific point. If you're on LinkedIn, you can provide a link out where someone submits their email. You see it all the time. A little lead magnet type funnel. You can use tools for videos embedded on your website or a clip in the middle of an existing video. In order for them to get the next piece of information, they have to sign up. And so this is partially gated content. I will personally die on this hill. I think that ungated content is really, 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 really dumb. I just think that it's much better, and I've seen really good results with our clients for doing partially gated content. It ends up filtering out people who are really low intent, but at the same time, people who are just maybe generally interested and want to see a little bit of information. They aren't in the market. They're just interested in the subject. They'll put their information in, and then you can track them and see a lot more data. And that's when you can see the true first touch that you had with them to conversion to a customer. It's usually pretty long, and it's not going to be the full picture still because they're going to come from somewhere else to see your content in the first place. So they might come from like a referral from a friend or a conversation, but it's going to give you a much more full picture because they're opting in sooner. And so originally, if you didn't have them opting in very soon and just when they need to book a call, then you're going to see maybe like a 60-day sales cycle from first submission of information to conversion to a customer. But if you get them to opt in truly in the beginning, closer to the beginning of their process, now you might be talking about 120 to 150 days where they've first interacted with your business and then they're actually converting to a customer. And so marketing can focus on that gap and really bring that to a smaller and smaller place by retargeting and by remessaging to them over and over again. So now that we've had that discussion, there is data we can focus on to actually handle the unattributed data set that we're looking at. So we have this chunk of people who are unattributed or direct. If it's above, I would say, I didn't mention this before, but I would say if it's above 40% that are direct or unattributed, you have some type of fundamental issue that you need to solve that we talked about before. If it's below that, that's the numbers that we've been seeing with a lot of people. Sometimes you can get it down to like 20 to 25%, but ultimately the more and more traffic you get and the more volume you do, you're going to see that number be pretty high nowadays just because of the changes that have happened. But that doesn't mean that we can't analyze these people. So now this is when we try to focus on other data points and to develop the signals of what's going on and how we can do more of what's working. So 1, data points you can pull from your conversations with prospects. Record your sales calls. Record anything that you can, any interaction you can with your customer with consent, obviously. And then analyze the transcript. You have AI tools now. You can create certain properties that you pull from conversations rather than filling them out in forms. And then you have those data points to use for attribution, but other information as well so that you can analyze that. Don't just have these calls and then just like leave the recordings and transcripts and do nothing with it. There's actually tools out there that will take meeting transcripts and fill it into CRM properties. So the tech is out there, but you can also have your SDRs, your BDRs, whoever is interacting with the customer actually fill this out instead. 2, demographic and firmographic information you did gather. You should be getting some of this stuff in forms from them or on calls. 3, demographic and firmographic information from third-party tools. You have their email, cross-reference it with all the tools that are out there whose entire job it is to collect and verify information from other places. They're not all going to be accurate. It's okay. You can still do a pretty good job, at least on the firmographic information. That stuff typically tends to be better. 4, the messaging and or reason they converted with. A/B testing, free resources, intent. So you can look back and see when they actually did convert. This is obviously people who have submitted their information, but you can then start looking at the actual messaging on the page that they converted on, whether they were looking for a specific resource. You can log that as a specific property, and then the intent behind that conversion. And so all of this can be analyzed and captured without having to use attribution from various tools like Google Analytics. 5, timing of conversions and actions. Timing is important. You can see when certain things are relevant throughout the customer journey. And so now that's another data point you can have for your signals, knowing that if someone has taken an action and then 30 days later, they're probably going to take another action, you can maybe accelerate that process or encourage them to do it. 6, extrapolated data. If you haven't seen this picture before, it's basically, this might not be the right one actually. I don't know if this is the original, but basically what this picture is showing is how extrapolation actually works. You have these data points, these bullet holes in the airplane here. And if you're just looking at the data that you have alone and not focusing on anything else, you would assume with this airplane, okay, this is where it's getting shot. This is where we need to put the armor. But that's not correct. The actuality is that the plane kept flying and you were able to record these data points because this actually wasn't a critical part of the airplane for it to fly. Instead, all of the planes that came back had this area with no bullet holes. And so if you extrapolate this means that obviously if you get shot in these other areas, there's a good chance your plane is going to crash because it didn't come back. And so this is actually where you need to put the armor. This is actually where you need to put the armor. And so you can see here that they highlighted that. And so signals is the same thing here. We can take what we do have around a contact, a deal, a company, and then we can extrapolate and see what other data points we can generate in order to understand what actions we need to take. So those are the data points to focus on. These are other approaches you can take. I'll hit these quickly. 1, third-party signal and attribution tools. We have a professional here and a convict here for pros and cons. There are existing third-party signal and attribution tools. They are great because they're automated and they provide additional data and insights that you might not be looking for in the first place. So that's great. The cons, they're mostly unverifiable with their accuracy. Like you could verify with the human that you're interacting with if this data is correct, but is that worth the effort in the first place? Don't know. And so you can't really verify how accurate the information is. And then we have a very high price tag. Not high, but you have a price tag associated with it. And so it's something to consider as an additional part of your tech stack. Plus, like, you're not really getting the strategy that's necessary in terms of understanding which signals to pay attention to because they just bombard you with everything. So that's a downside to just going the full tool route. 2 is very defined funnels. We've seen pretty high success with this one with our clients. If you can simplify your customer journeys to specific paths and specific funnels where you're only feeding specific campaigns through these pages and you're feeding specific campaigns through these pages, and then certain channels go through these pages, you don't really need to even have attribution in terms of where their original source that they're coming from, because you know that all of your infrastructure is set up for them to only get in one way and exit one way. And so all the emails and stuff that you'd be sending them are all for that specific funnel. And the only downside is that if people go directly to your website after seeing one of these channels or touch points, then that's the one way where you'll still be having direct attribution if the attribution isn't captured. So there's a downside to this one, and like you can probably get down to, I think the clients who do this, probably like 15% are a direct or unattributed still, but we could still usually work our way back with other types of actions like email opens or something like that to see which funnel they came from, and then we can attribute it later. Pros, attribution tech doesn't matter. Like I said, higher data quality because of that. Cons are it's not flexible. That's the definition of it. You're making it not flexible so that you don't need to capture data. You just assume the data. And it's very time intensive. So if you end up having to create a new funnel or a new product, like every time you do that, you're going to have to create a new funnel. So if you're a complex business, it's not going to work. Whoops, not done yet. Self-reported attribution is the last one, can lead to a deeper customer journey discussion and also highlights the conversion points that matter most to the prospect. Cons, only one data point on attribution. Most people suck with memory, so take it as you will. So pick your fighter, attribution or signals. I know who I'm picking. Signals lead to more accurate decisions. Attribution has gaps and holes, but it's still a useful part of signals. So last but not least, take one action, like, comment, share in a company chat. And then next videos, why you need to be using partially gated content with demand generation initiatives. So we'll go deeper into that. If you want the Signal Constructor workbook, put your email in the link in the description. It's free. It'll tell you exactly what signals your team needs to be using and looking at. I'm Dan Saavedra. Thanks for watching.